Porter canceled our wedding while I was standing in line at the bank to ask why our wedding account had a zero balance. He walked through the glass doors wearing the navy suit we had picked together for our rehearsal dinner, holding his phone like a weapon. I still had my debit card clutched tightly in my hand, my heart pounding so hard I could barely hear the teller calling the next customer. $31,000 was gone. My overtime money, my tax refunds, my freelance savings, the vacation I never took, the emergency cushion I had built after watching my mother start over with nothing. Porter stopped directly in front of me and said, "Don't make this ugly, Bryn. I already told the venue the wedding is off." I stared at him. He turned his phone toward me. Transfer complete. Then he smiled. "It was our future. You lost that when you stopped trusting me. My name is Bryn Calloway." And what Porter did not know was that while he was stealing my savings and calling it heartbreak, my new job offer was arriving with a security clause that would make him regret walking into any lobby after me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Subject line, confidential access onboarding. The manager's office had a single plant on the windowsill and a photo of her family. It looked normal, safe. I did not open the job letter in front of him. That was the first small miracle. The old me would have shown him instantly. "See? I'm not failing. See? I have options. See? Please still respect me." Instead, I put my phone face down in my purse. Porter kept talking. He said he had protected the money because I was panicking about commitment. He said the mortgage required bold moves. He said I had become too obsessed with keeping my money separate from our life. Our life. The house would have been in his name alone. The account had mostly my deposits. The cancellation fees were mostly under my signature. But he said our whenever he wanted access and your whenever there was debt. A bank manager quietly guided me into a small side office. Porter tried to follow. The manager blocked him gently and said, "Only account holders in this meeting." Porter laughed. "I'm her fiancé." I looked at him through the doorway. Not anymore. The door closed. For the first time in 2 years, I was in a room where Porter's voice did not follow me. The silence felt enormous. I thought about all the mornings I had woken up before him, all the times I had checked our account balance, all the ways I had tried to build something stable. None of it had protected me from this moment. The bank manager printed the transfer record. Porter had initiated it at 6:12 a.m., while I was asleep, from his laptop, using a saved login after I had trusted him with the account during wedding planning. The transfer memo said, "House Fund." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because he had stolen my money and labeled it as destiny. The manager asked if I had authorized it. My throat closed. No. Saying that word out loud changed the room. The manager's expression turned careful. Professional. Serious. She explained dispute procedures, documentation requirements, account freezes, and the difference between being added for planning purposes and having permission to empty funds for personal use. I signed what I needed to sign. Hands shaking. Then I opened the job letter. Offer confirmed. Compliance documentation specialist. Arden Secure Logistics. Confidential access onboarding required. On-site security protocols apply. For the first time that day, I breathed. Porter thought he had taken my future. Another one had already arrived. And this one had security protocols he knew nothing about. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call every single person and explain what actually happened. But I knew how that would look. Desperate. Emotional. Exactly what he had already told them I was. By the time I left the bank, Porter had already messaged both families. "Wedding is off." Bryn froze under financial pressure and accused me of stealing money meant for our home. Accused. He loved words like that. Words that made facts sound emotional. His mother replied that marriage required unity. My aunt said maybe I had commitment fear. His brother said Porter was trying to build a future. Sad. I sat in my car and watched the messages pile up. Not one person asked where the money came from. Not one person asked whose name would have been on the house. Not one person asked why the wedding account was empty. My sister Leora called. She did not say hello. She said, "Do not answer anyone. Come here." I drove to her apartment with my wedding binder on the passenger seat and my engagement ring still on my finger because I had forgotten it existed. At a red light, I pulled it off. It left a pale circle on my skin. I put it in the cup holder. It looked smaller there, Less important, I remembered the day we started the binder together. Porter had seemed excited. He had picked the venue with me. He had tasted the cake samples. But when it came to signing contracts or putting down deposits, he always had a reason to wait. Now I understood why. He never intended to be financially responsible, only legally protected. The wedding binder looked ridiculous on Leora's kitchen table. Color-coded tabs, vendor timelines, payment receipts, guest lists. Porter used to call it your little control center when he wanted to tease me, then ask where everything was when he needed something done. Leora opened the contracts one by one. Venue, my signature. Caterer, my card. Photographer, my deposit. Florist, my email. Dress balance, mine. Porter's contribution was mostly opinions, and one handwritten promise in the budget tab. I'll transfer my half after the mortgage pre-approval. Love you, P. Leora tapped it. Keep that. I stared at his handwriting until the letters blurred. He had called me distrustful for wanting clarity. But he had trusted my organization enough to let me carry every liability. That night, I made 3 folders on my laptop. Bank, wedding, job. The life he tried to destroy was becoming evidence. And evidence, I was learning, did not need his permission to exist. The recruiter's voice had been kind on the phone. She said they liked my background in financial documentation. She said I seemed detail-oriented. She said that mattered in secure logistics. I had not told her about the wedding. I had not told her about the bank lobby. But somehow, talking to her felt like the first conversation in weeks where nobody was accusing me of anything. Arden Secure Logistics did not sound glamorous. That was part of why I liked it. They handled secure transportation documentation for medical suppliers, labs, and infrastructure clients. My role was compliance documentation, verifying records, tracking access permissions, and keeping sensitive vendor files clean. The recruiter called Monday morning. Bryn, we'd like to accelerate your onboarding. Some vendor reviews are starting earlier than expected. I asked what that meant. She said the first week would include an NDA briefing, controlled floor access, and a company escort until my badge permissions were finalized. A company escort. I wrote it down like I was taking notes for someone calmer than me. Then she added, given your prior experience in financial records, you'll support a vendor integrity audit. My hand stopped. Porter worked in client relations at a private security contractor called ValePoint Risk Services, a contractor that handled logistics security. I did not ask if they were involved. I knew better already, but the silence after I said Porter's company name told me enough. Something was happening that I did not fully understand yet. I stared at the form for a long time before submitting it. Part of me wanted to lie, to say there was no conflict, to pretend Porter did not exist. But Leora had said something that morning that stayed with me. She said, the truth only hurts you if you're surrounded by liars. The conflict disclosure form felt like confessing a wound to strangers. Former fiancé, Porter Vale. Employer, ValePoint Risk Services. Recent financial dispute, wedding cancellation, unauthorized transfer allegation, potential personal contact risk. I hated every line. Not because it was false, because it was humiliating to reduce a broken engagement to a compliance category. The onboarding manager, Sable Arden, called me after reviewing it. Her voice was calm. You are not in trouble for having a personal life, Bryn. I closed my eyes. I had not realized how badly I needed to hear that. She explained that if ValePoint appeared in any vendor review, I would be screened off from decisions involving Porter personally, but I could still work on general documentation under supervision. Clean, professional, fair. That was the first time I saw the difference between a boundary and a punishment. Porter punished me when I said no. Arden protected the process when I told the truth. Those were not the same thing. I made the coffee slowly, measuring the grounds, pouring the water, watching it drip. It felt good to do something I could control completely, something that did not require his permission or his opinion or his approval, just hot water and time. Porter's text came from a number I had not blocked yet. Are you seriously going to work for Arden? Is this about ValePoint? I stared at the screen. He had canceled the wedding, taken the savings, told everyone I was unstable, and now he wanted career intelligence. I forwarded the text to Sable and my attorney, Mira Solon, who Leora had found that morning. Mira replied first, do not engage. I will send financial communication instructions. Sable replied next. Documented. Do not answer questions regarding employer, vendors, or onboarding. I put the phone down and made coffee. My hands shook, but my decision did not. 10 minutes later, Porter sent another text. You owe me at least the truth after accusing me at the bank. I saved it too. The man who took my money was now demanding information like I was the one in debt. That was when I stopped calling it heartbreak. It was control in a suit. And control, I was learning, hates losing access. I thought about the ring in my cup holder, the one I had worn for 8 months, the one he had proposed with after I paid for the dinner, the one that had felt romantic until I realized how many things he let me pay for while planning our supposedly joint future. I did not miss it. Mira's letter was beautiful in the coldest way. No insults, no heartbreak, no emotional history, just dates, transfers, bank records, wedding invoices, and a demand for repayment of unauthorized funds and documented shared expenses. Porter responded in less than an hour. She gave me access. It was a joint future. She's bitter I ended things. Mira asked for written proof that I gifted him the money. He sent none. Instead, he texted me, call off your lawyer before you embarrass yourself. I read that message twice. Embarrass yourself. That was always the threat. Be too careful and you're anxious. Ask for repayment and you're greedy. Protect confidential work and you're secretive. Refuse to be robbed and you're embarrassing. I did not answer. I packed my first day outfit, my documents, and the ring he had not asked back for. Then I went to bed at Leora's and slept 4 hours. It was the best sleep I had gotten all week, because I had stopped waiting for his permission to protect myself. The temporary badge felt light in my hand, almost like it could disappear if I held it too tightly. But when I clipped it to my shirt, it stayed. Solid. Real. Mine. The escort's name was Maybellette. She wore a navy blazer, carried a tablet, and greeted me like I belonged there. Bryn Calloway, I'll take you to restricted onboarding. The receptionist handed me a temporary badge with a red stripe. I looked at it longer than necessary. Porter had tried to make me feel like a woman being removed from her own future. This badge said I was being trusted into one. May walked me through locked glass doors, past offices where people spoke quietly over binders and secure laptops. In the briefing room, Sable explained the rules. No discussing vendor reviews. No confirming whether a company was under assessment. No bringing personal devices into controlled sessions. Report unusual contact. Report pressure. Report attempts to obtain access through personal relationships. I almost laughed at the last one. Sable noticed. Someone already tried? I slid my phone across the table. Yes, she read Porter's text without changing her expression. Then she said, you did the right thing bringing this forward. Tomas explained everything in a way that made sense. He did not use complicated legal words to make me feel small. He used plain language. He made sure I understood. He treated my questions like they mattered. That alone felt revolutionary after 2 years with Porter. Sable did not say ValPoint was guilty of anything. Real life is not that neat. She said ValPoint Risk Services was part of a scheduled vendor review because several contractors were being evaluated for updated access procedures. Still, my stomach dropped. Porter's company. My financial dispute, his questions, his access to my old life. All of it now sat inside a compliance file. Sable brought in legal counsel, a quiet man named Tomas Wren. He explained that I would not review files directly involving Porter's department unless cleared, but my report about his contact mattered because it showed potential improper personal inquiry. I asked if I should withdraw from the role. Tomas looked surprised. No, you disclosed. He contacted. Those are different things. I had spent so long being blamed for other people's reactions that the sentence felt almost radical. Different things. His choices were not my disqualification. I had done nothing wrong by telling the truth. That realization felt like unlocking a door I had not known was closed. I kept my eyes forward as I walked. I did not look back. I did not acknowledge him. For the first time, his presence in a room did not change my direction. I just kept walking. And May walked with me. That was the difference. I was not alone anymore. Porter saw me before I saw him. I felt it first, that old tightening between my shoulder blades. Then I turned. He stood near the visitor desk with 2 ValPoint colleagues, wearing his client meeting smile. It disappeared when he saw my red-striped badge and May beside me. His eyes moved from my badge to the escort to the restricted elevator. For the first time since the bank, he looked unsure. "Bryn," he called. May paused. I did not. Porter stepped forward. "I need to talk to you." May turned smoothly. "Sir, please remain with your visitor group." His colleagues looked at him. His jaw tightened. "I know her." May's voice stayed polite. "That does not authorize contact in this area." I watched the words land on him. That does not authorize contact. Nobody had ever said it to him so clearly, and nobody had ever said it for me. I kept walking toward the elevator. Porter did not follow. I thought about all the times Porter had emailed me during our relationship. Sweet messages. Apologies after arguments. Promises about the future. Now his emails were evidence. Documentation of behavior. Proof that he could not stop trying to control me even after he said he was done. The security log was precise. Time, 9:18 a.m. Location, visitor reception. Subject, Porter Vale, Vale Point Risk Services. Incident, attempted personal contact with restricted access employee after prior disclosure. Incident. The word made my stomach turn, but Sable said it mattered. We document behavior, not drama. I wish someone had told me that years ago. At lunch, Porter emailed me. Subject, seriously? You let security treat me like a threat? After everything I did for you? I sat in the cafeteria with my sandwich untouched. After everything I did for you. He meant the ring, the apartment, the image. He did not mean the rent I covered when he changed jobs, the resume I edited, the savings he took, the contracts I carried. I forwarded the email. Then I deleted his contact photo from my phone. It was a small thing. It felt enormous, like reclaiming space he had occupied without permission. I kept the notebook beside my bed. Every night, I wrote one sentence. Something I had learned. Something I had survived. Something I would never forget. The notebook was filling up, slowly, but it was mine. Every word in my handwriting, every truth in my voice. Vale Point Compliance reached out that afternoon. Not to me, to Arden. They requested the security log, my conflict disclosure summary, and any messages from Porter related to my role. Tomas handled it properly. Mira handled my financial claims separately. For once, nobody asked me to personally convince anyone. That was the strange relief of process. Porter texted from another number that night. "You're making me look dangerous." I stared at the message. He had taken my savings before sunrise. Canceled our wedding in a bank lobby. Told our families I was unstable. Asked about my job. Approached me at a restricted site. But he was angry about how he looked. I forwarded the text and blocked the number. Then I wrote one sentence in my notebook. He is not afraid of hurting me. He is afraid of being seen accurately. That sentence became the center of the story. The story I was finally allowed to tell. The timeline was simple, clear, impossible to argue with. Porter contacted me first on this date. Porter approached me first on this date. Porter violated boundaries on this date. No narrative could change the sequence. No charm could rearrange the facts. The dates were what they were. Porter told Vale Point I was using my new job to punish him. He claimed I was emotionally unstable after the breakup and had manufactured concerns to damage his career. There it was again. The same story, dressed for a corporate audience. Mira sent Vale Point the bank timeline only as relevant to the conflict issue. Disputed transfer, before employment start, legal demand before vendor meeting, no direct contact initiated by me. Sable sent the security timeline. Tomas sent the text asking about Arden and Vale Point. Dates do not care about charm, that was their beauty. Porter's claim started to fold under sequence. He contacted me first. He asked about the job first. He approached me at reception first. He blamed me after every documented boundary. Vale Point's compliance officer wrote back. "We appreciate the clarity." I printed that sentence. Not for court, for myself. Clarity was becoming my revenge, and it was better than any anger could have been. I had stopped expecting anyone official to believe me. 2 years with Porter had taught me that charm usually won, that confident men were believed, that women who asked for documentation were called difficult. But the bank manager did not call me difficult. She called the transfer suspicious. And that word changed everything. The bank called on a Thursday. The manager's voice was careful but kind. Their review supported my claim that the transfer was inconsistent with prior account use and made from Porter's device shortly before the wedding cancellation. They could not magically return everything overnight. But the dispute had weight. The account was frozen from further movement. Porter's bank was notified. Mira said the findings strengthened our civil demand. I sat on Leora's couch with the phone pressed to my ear and finally cried. Not delicate tears, exhausted tears, the kind you cry when someone official says, without using the word, "You were not crazy." Leora sat beside me and rubbed my back. When I could breathe again, she said, "What do you want now?" I thought about the wedding, the house, the money, the job. I want my life to stop being collateral for his ambition. She nodded. Then we make sure it never is again. Leora asked me later if I felt guilty, about the mortgage falling through, about his job problems, about any of it. I thought about the question carefully. Then I said no. I felt sad that it came to this. But I did not cause it. He did, by taking what was not his. Porter's mortgage lender paused his application. I found out through Mira because his attorney suddenly wanted to negotiate. The house fund transfer he used to look financially stable was now disputed. The account source was under review. His employment was under compliance scrutiny. The wedding was cancelled. The clean story he built for the lender had cracks in every wall. His attorney offered a partial repayment if I would sign a letter saying the transfer had been a misunderstanding. Mira asked me calmly, "Do you want to sign that?" I almost laughed. A misunderstanding was when someone forgets flowers, not when someone moves $31,000 before dawn and cancels your wedding in a bank lobby. "No," I said. Mira replied to his attorney with one sentence. "Miss Calloway will not validate a false account of the transfer." That sentence felt better than revenge. It felt like a locked door, with my name on the key. Sable had asked me that morning if I felt safe, not just physically, emotionally, safe enough to focus, safe enough to do my job. Safe enough to exist in the building without constantly looking over my shoulder. I had said yes. And I meant it, because for the first time, someone was actively protecting that safety. The second time Porter came to Arden, he did not have a vendor meeting. That made everything worse. He arrived at reception asking for me by name. He told the receptionist it was personal and urgent. May was called. Then security. By the time Sable notified me, Porter was still in the lobby insisting he had a right to speak with his former fiancée. Sable asked if I wanted to go downstairs. My body answered before my mouth could. "No," she nodded. "You do not have to." Security asked Porter to leave. He refused once, only once. That was enough for a formal removal from premises notice. No handcuffs, no scene. Just two security officers walking him through the glass doors while he realized the word personal no longer overrode policy. He had come to intimidate me. Instead, he gave everyone a clearer record. And records, I had learned, do not forget. I watched the monitor until the lobby doors closed behind him. Then I watched the empty lobby for another minute, making sure he was really gone, making sure the doors stayed closed, making sure I could breathe. Then Sable turned off the monitor, and we went back to work. The phrase sounds dramatic. It was not. That was what made it satisfying. Security did not storm in. They did not shout. They did not touch him unless necessary. They simply stood between him and the restricted workplace he had tried to enter through our relationship. One officer said, "Mr. Vale, you need to leave the premises." Porter looked past them toward the elevators, like if he stared hard enough, I would appear and save him from the consequences of frightening me. I watched from the security office monitor because Sable thought I deserved to know he was gone. He adjusted his jacket, the same jacket he wore to mortgage meetings. Then he walked out under his own power, smaller than he had ever looked beside me. No audience of family, no cruel speech, no ring thrown into a bag. Just a man learning that access can be revoked, and that some doors close permanently. The settlement terms were more than I expected, not because Porter was generous, but because Mira was thorough. She had documented every deposit I made, every vendor I paid, every promise he wrote. She had built a case so clear that arguing against it would have cost him more in legal fees than just paying me back. So he paid. Not because he wanted to, because he had no choice. Porter's leave became official on Monday. Vale Point cited vendor integrity concerns, inappropriate contact with a restricted access employee, and failure to respect documented boundaries during an active review. His attorney suddenly stopped using the phrase misunderstanding. Now the word was settlement. Mira negotiated from records, not emotion. Full return of the transferred savings, payment of his documented wedding share, written confirmation that the funds were not a gift, no direct contact, no workplace contact, no family intermediaries about financial or employment matters. When I read the draft, my hands shook. Leora asked if I was scared. I said, no. I'm sad it had to become this official for him to stop. That was the truth. Sometimes the hardest part of leaving is realizing kindness never protected you. Only boundaries did, and boundaries only worked when someone enforced them. I had found people who would. I had spent weeks feeling like my life was ending. Like losing Porter meant losing my future. But sitting in that conference room with the offer letter in front of me, I realized something. The future he offered required me to be smaller, quieter, less careful with money, less clear about boundaries. This future required me to be exactly who I was, detailed, documented, clear. Sable called me into the same conference room where I had disclosed Porter's name. This time there were no tissues on the table, only an offer letter. Permanent compliance documentation specialist. Higher salary, restricted access eligibility, clear promotion track. I stared at the paper until the letters blurred. A month earlier, Porter had made me feel like a woman without a future, unless his name was attached to it. Now my future had a salary, benefits, security training, and my name alone at the top. Sable said, "Your work has been excellent, and your handling of a personal conflict was exactly what this role requires." I signed, not because I was healed, because I was ready. Healing would come later, in quiet pieces. But readiness was a decision, and I made it with the pen steady in my hand. For the first time in months, my signature felt like mine again. I thought about downloading a budgeting app, something to track every dollar, but then I realized I had already been doing that, for years, in spreadsheets, in notebooks, in my head. That was how I knew exactly how much was missing. That was how I proved what he took. My carefulness had saved me, not destroyed me, like he claimed. The settlement funds cleared at 9:04 a.m. I watched the balance appear in my new account, not the old wedding account, not anything with Porter's name attached. Mine. The number did not undo the bank lobby. It did not erase the family messages, or the humiliation, or the way my chest tightened every time a man in a suit walked too quickly toward reception, but it returned something important. Proof that taking from me had not become permanent just because he sounded confident doing it. At 10:17, Mira forwarded the final signed no-contact terms. At 11:30, Sable received notice from ValePoint. Porter was terminated from client-facing duties and released from employment after their review concluded he had created vendor risk exposure and ignored boundary instructions. No dramatic firing scene, no public shame, just the consequences of his own pattern, written in formal language. The same kind of language he never thought would be used against him. I saved every document, not for revenge, for proof that I had survived. The exchange service was professional. No drama, no confrontation, just a scheduled time and a neutral location. Porter dropped off my box. I picked it up an hour later. We never saw each other. That was exactly what I wanted. Not closure, just distance. Clean, permanent, final. The house fell through quietly. That was the most poetic part. The lender could not proceed after the disputed funds, job loss, and changed financial profile. The seller moved on. The house Porter wanted in his name, funded by my savings, became someone else's future. I found out from Mira, not from him. The no-contact agreement held, no angry call, no doorstep apology, no final performance, just absence. And absence, after a relationship like that, feels strange at first. Your body keeps waiting for the next message, the next accusation, the next emotional invoice. Then one day, it does not come. That afternoon, I picked up the last box of my things from a neutral exchange service. Inside was a mug, 2 sweaters, and a framed engagement photo face down. I threw away the frame. I kept the sweater. Not every memory needed a ceremony. Some just needed to be folded and put away. Leora helped me unpack the next morning. We hung my clothes in the tiny closet. We arranged my books on the single shelf. We put my coffee maker on the counter. It did not take long. I did not have much, but everything I had was mine. Earned, chosen, protected. My new apartment was small. The kitchen had exactly 3 drawers, one of which stuck if you pulled too fast. The bedroom window faced a brick wall. The water pressure was questionable. I loved it. Every key was mine. Every bill was mine. Every dollar in the account was mine. The first night, I put my mattress on the floor, ate noodles from a paper bowl, and opened the job letter again. The permanent one. Not to prove anything to Porter, not to show anyone, just to remind myself that the same week he tried to take my foundation, I built a new one. Leora came over with a cheap bottle of sparkling cider and 2 plastic cups. She raised hers and said, "To no one calling theft a future." I laughed so hard I cried. This time the crying did not scare me. It felt like my body clearing out the last of his voice and making room for my own. My permanent security badge arrived 2 months later. Bryn Calloway, Compliance Documentation Specialist, Restricted Access Authorized. I held it in the lobby, where May had first escorted me upstairs, and I thought about the bank lobby, where Porter tried to make me small. 2 lobbies. 2 versions of me. In the first, I stood shaking while the man I loved turned theft into rejection. In the second, I stood steady while the company that trusted me handed me access he could never take. Porter canceled the wedding. He took my savings. He told people I was unstable. Then my job letter arrived, and security came for him. Not because I asked them to punish him, but because he kept walking through doors he no longer had the right to open. That was the lesson. Some people mistake your love for permission, some mistake your patience for ownership, and some are shocked when the woman they tried to empty becomes the one with the keys. I did not get revenge by ruining him. I got free by documenting the truth, protecting my peace, and building a life where no one could ever again call my savings, my work, or my future theirs.